Welcome to the Best Music Podcast with Dan Spencer, where we talk about music and the methods for making music with top performers in the music industry. This week's featured guest is Lauren Light. Now, pop singer-songwriter Lauren Light is a force to be reckoned with. The Berklee grad has played over 800 shows in over 30 states across the United States. You can hear her music featured in the hit Marvel TV show Runaways, ads for Nike, Hyundai, in the show MTV Teen Mom 2, MTV Siesta Key, McDonald's Overheard Radio, we got to learn what that is, and YouTube Nashville sessions. Now you can check her out on Instagram at Lauren_Light, and then also 206 Music. Check this out. It's TWOOH SIXMUSIC 206 Music, Lauren Light, all spelled conventionally. Also, check out her incredible podcast, the Enlightened Musician Podcast. I've heard she's had some amazing guests on, and we'll be rocking and rolling. Lauren, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. And one of those amazing guests is you coming up, so that's exciting.
Me?
I know. Crazy.
Me?
It's a good episode. I'm so excited. Season 3 is about to be uploaded, and they're just so much fun. I enjoy doing them, and then just finally getting it all packaged and out into the world where people can actually hear it, even better. So I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Do we know what episode I'm going to be of season 3?
Right now, I don't. I think you're going to be
exciting.
like 5.
Cool.
Right now. That's kind of where it's looking.
Okay, well, enough about me, more about you. So let's talk about 206 Music. I'm really fascinated. I've never been in the sync licensing game. I mean, I understand how it works. Like, I have a Harry Fox account that I use, and that's basically just for, like, tracking YouTube content, ASCAP, PROs, things like that. But this is a whole nother side of the industry where you are taking other people's music and getting it hooked up with advertisements, as your music has, and TV shows. And I mean, placements for, like, I saw you guys got a placement for, like, the UFC, placements for Marvel. I mean, these are big properties you're working with. This is not small time, like, local news, like, you know, the sun awning commercial that, like, you know, is like was filmed in the 80s and they're still showing today. Like, this is big deal stuff you're working with. So what I'd really love to understand is maybe you could break down the basics of what sync licensing is for our listeners, and then talk about how you got into it.
Yeah. So sync licensing is just synchronization, anything that you can sync to picture. So that can be anything from, and even not picture, people don't realize this too, sometimes things like amusement parks, they use music. We were talking about overheard radio. They use music. So that stuff that you hear when you're walking through the TJ Maxx and the McDonald's, that's sync licensing, micro sync. But this is what we kind of do, is more like advertisements, TV, film, anything that has music in it, we pitch music to. So that's kind of the long short of what sync is and what we do.
Now, when you say pitch music to, this is going to be a meeting between you, or an email between you and a music manager for the brand that you're pitching to?
Actually, so it would be a music supervisor, or it would be the ad agency. So a lot of times if it's for a TV show or for a film, it's going to be a music supervisor. They supervise the whole entire project. A lot of times they have people that are underneath it that are clearance. But pretty much what they're doing is the director or whoever's in charge of the film says, hey, here's the thing, here's our budget, go find the music. These are the scenes. So then they go to a couple of their trusted contacts and they ask. We also go to a lot of networking events. Like, I know a lot of people think, man, I can just start pitching straight to companies. They don't work with people I do not trust, because there's a lot of hidden rules and a lot of things that they just go to the people they trust. So they usually come just to different licensing companies, and we'll say, okay, here's what we got. This is the show that we're working on. We need these kind of songs. Just send us a playlist of some stuff you have. If something strikes their interest, which, you know, usually does, or hopefully does, that's what we all want, they'll come back, and then we'll start talking, you know, budget points if they haven't already established it. A lot of times they've already talked about kind of budget points and where it's going to be aired, a whole bunch of the nitty gritty stuff. As far as with ads, a lot of times we work with an ad agency. So when we're doing different commercials that are on a larger scale, they have an ad team. So those are kind of two little worlds. And then there's the trailer world, which is its own little niche of itself. And that's a fun world too, but that's usually with the trailer house company. And those are usually custom, which we can talk about later. So we pitch a lot of stuff that has already been created. So songs that have already been created, and we're pitching them, trying to find the right home. A lot of times, like for ads and for trailers, a lot of times it's custom work because, you know, you've seen ads where you can see certain words are changed, or they'll do commercials that are very specific to the actual name of the brand, which like we have one like LA County dental thing. It literally had their name in the song. So we those are the two worlds we do, is finding a home for the songs that are already made and creating songs for custom pieces. So yeah, that's like the two little sides. I see questions. What do you got?
I mean, a billion questions.
Go for it.
Further upstream of all of this process, I think, just selecting the music, because there's so much music out there. I forget some stat. There's something ridiculous like, 3,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify a day or a week, or something absolutely atrocious like that. I mean, it's incredible, but the number is ridiculous. So I think what's interesting is to maybe unpack that you are a trained musician, and from that training, you have developed a certain set of skills that that was more of a Sean Connery than it was a Liam Neeson, but anyway.
I appreciate it.
Wait, you understand where we're going with this. But you've developed a certain set of skills where you can identify a song and you have an understanding of it past the sort of, I say superficial emotional, but I guess what I mean is, when you hear a piece of music, everyone has an emotional reaction, but then you're a trained musician, so you can go past that and say, okay, this tempo, this thing, this feel is going to work best for X or X. So how do you hook up with different artists? Are you always on the hunt for artists? Are artists pitching to 206 Music? Obviously, you've sort of gotten in because you're part of 206 Music, so you can make music. And I think I just have so many questions. Like, are you then making songs that you know, like that one song you had in the Runaways? You may have had more than one, but there's one where there was a music video of you where it was like the woods instead of you, and it was a stationary shot. Mm-hmm. By the way, which was an awesome music video.
I did that myself.
That was so cool. I mean, like, really effective use of budget, like incredible. So, all right, let's start from you. When you're making music, are you ever tailoring a composition to an end goal of this is going to be good for X? Or are you looking at what X is and then making the composition? Or are you just composing and then whatever fits?
It's a mix. It's honestly a mix. I think we mess up by only writing what our experiences are, which is amazing as an artist. Do that. But if you're wanting to get into the sync world as well, I think actually dabbling into what would create the scene and not being too specific. That's sometimes the problem, is people are too specific in songwriting to get placed into sync. So if there's doing a song that has like, I walked down 32nd Street in New York City, you've literally canceled out any show that's not in New York City on 42nd Street. So like, you got to be a little conscientious of how to write specifically without getting specific. So whenever I'm doing a lot of different songs, like writing, we're going to talk about Run. So Run was actually written originally for, what was that slasher movie? It was a Halloween. I originally wrote it trying to get a song on Halloween. And I thought, I reverse engineer. I love creepy music. And I was like, well, here's the thing. Everyone always runs away from people in horror flicks. The song's called Run. So I was like, what could add to a scene that would just really make me freak out? So we started with the music, and I think I wrote that song maybe in 15 minutes with a group of people, and we just kept adding the elements in. We pitched it to that song, or to that show, and it didn't land. which is fine because anything that you make will possibly land somewhere else. A couple months later, Marvel hit us up and was like, we think it's going to be perfect for one of the bigger scenes that's coming up. That's going to be like this moment turning around and it worked out really well. So we had kind of already had it.
How does Marvel hear that? Is it through the grapevine of music supervisors and that these things get passed along?
Yeah. So like, for instance, when we pitched it, so the supervisor was looking for something for Halloween and they didn't want it. I'm not going to let that song sit. So I go, cool. What else would this fit for? Where else? So a lot of times you'll submit it to people that do a lot of, like for this example, I'm just going to use Run. Okay. It's a scary song. What other kind of shows, what other kind of movies would use this? So I submit it to supervisors that possibly will work on something because they work on similar things. And that one specifically was working on it. I found out, and that's why I could do the music video. I found out in June prior to December when it aired because it was supposed to air in November. And I thought, well, maybe it didn't happen. And all of a sudden I was on like a Spotify editorial playlist. And I was like, oh, I guess it happened. Because that happens a lot too, where you'll get something pre-cleared and you think it's going to be on it, but something happens where the season cancels or you just never know. So you have to just, send it and forget it because that happens a lot. So until it's on TV, I never believe it's actually aired. But getting back to the point of writing music for Synch, if you can just instead start with topics that people don't think about, there's so much love songs. There's so much breakup songs. You're going to just be drowning in a sea of a lot of other people. Write those songs for your artist project. Still submit those for Synch. But write some songs that are maybe you as a storyteller. Think about stuff like going home. That topic's used so much. Show a song about like home and feeling like you're at home. Togetherness, platonic love. There's no songs for friends. That's why I like You Got a Friend in Me, which is that older song. Goes so well and things.
Used all the time.
Do you know how many shows that the friend, they're counting on them and blah, blah, blah. No one writes songs for that. So sometimes if you just think about, and there's still stuff that you can relate to and you can write. No one's writing because everyone's writing love and everyone's writing. So if you just think a little outside the box, still be organic because that's the difference. A lot of people try to write jingle music and that will you still have to have authenticity. So it's like taking the ability to look at something and think, okay, this is what they need, but also put your artistry and kind of put it together. That's the perfect point. Like, let's just think, I'm going to think of a couple more. So we got home, we got togetherness, anything that has haunting feel to it works really well. For ads, anything that talks about like, let's go, let's get hype, we're in this together. Anything that's like, I'm amazing because I'm wearing this piece of clothing, but not saying this piece. Like, I feel great. That would be one of those that ads use all the time. When you'll see these now that I'm saying it, you'll watch ads. Like We Back is one. Like We're Back. That works for promo. Like we're back on air, or like we're back is like back to school sales.
Summer.
So it's just like there's a list. If you do your research, and this research is easy, you just got to sit and watch TV, and start Shazamming the songs that you hear. Start looking at their lyrical content. They're all the same. They start just someone's created it in a different form. So you start learning this over time. So you write your artistry, but you throw in some of those topics when you're writing.
So how do you go about filtering music from other sources that are not from you? Because not everything that 206 is doing is a Lauren Light song.
Oh, gosh, no. We would have no company.
There's a lot of other artists. There's a lot of other placements. How do you go about selecting artists? And then within those artists' catalogs, I mean, do you have like 2 hours a day blocked out to just listen to different music? And if so, or if not, what is your qualifier for a piece of music? Like, do you give it 5 seconds? And then if you like it, you give it another 5 seconds and you give it another, like, how do you help expedite the process?
Yeah, so we actually have like on the site where we don't accept unsolicited because we're very particular. So a lot of times it's by referral or it's by someone we've met, just because we'd be overwhelmed, to be honest with you, because some people still submit, and I hate to say it, if it's good, we'll give them a call back anyway. But a lot of times to filter it, there's 3 of us on Team 206, so at least we can divide and conquer. But a lot of times it's, one, we don't want to oversaturate what we already have in our catalog. So if we already have a couple artists that are similar to that, even if we think the song's great, we want to make sure those artists are getting their fair, viewpoint. But a lot of times there's a lot of gaps that are not being filled. So, we have a lot of shows that use a ton of, we use a lot of hip hop as one of the examples that we can never get enough of hip hop, and pop we tend to use a lot of as well. So if you're not one of those 2 and you're in some other different genres, sometimes we're because we don't have as much of those. So that's great. But as far as when we're filtering, one, we got to make sure there's a couple things that's there. So it's really big in sync that there's no samples. So I can kind of hear really fast, or I can do some different software to make sure there's no loops in there, because that can be legally impending on us. So there comes some issues in that. Or when people sample old songs and put it in theirs, that can be a copyright infringement. So if I hear a reference to an old song or a lyrical melody, it's out already. We don't want to clear that or have to deal with that. Other things are just something unique. For me, when I hear a song, a lot of supervisors, if it's something that my ear kind of does this to, I'm more interested in, because there is a lot of genres that a lot of people kind of sound the same. So a lot of times we're looking for something that's very unique, or that we know we have clients for that we can pitch, because there are certain things that it's amazing songs, but if we don't work with those clients, I'm not going to waste that artist's time taking their song. I've honestly told them, a couple agencies are hey, your music's fantastic. You should hit up these 2 people because they are in this world. Because we're all musicians as well that own the company, or producers. We want to be treated with that respect as well, and don't want artists just sitting there. So, and we're non-exclusive, which is really nice. So we just ask that. Yeah. So we just ask our artists, don't oversaturate yourself when you send it. Our goal is, don't put it in more than 5 if possible, but they can. But that's just our suggestion, because their song is easier to place when it's not everywhere. But yeah, so we're a little different. We don't do exclusivity, like some people do.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
why did you guys make that choice?
Honestly, I think it's because we're musicians ourselves and producers. People are going to want to come to us when we get them stuff. So I think that's a loyalty there, but we also don't want anyone to ever feel like they're locked in. We always just ask for a 30-day, hey, let us know, because we've already had some things in motion. And if anything's in motion, we'll keep that going. But anyone's free to go. So at times, someone can get signed to a label deal, someone gets signed to a publishing deal. We don't want someone's career stopping because they signed an exclusive deal with us, And I think that just comes from the fact that we all understand that. So I think that's exactly why, honestly. And that's one good thing about being a company ran by artists, producers as well, because we got that mind frame as well.
So, ballpark for a major trailer placement. So let's say the next big Marvel blockbuster, I get my song, 2 sticks and a bottle of jam.
Oh my God.
Right now you're making fun of my artistry, and I don't think I appreciate it.
You say that though. There's probably some movies that would definitely fit.
Right. Okay. So my new breakout single, 2 sticks and a bottle of jam, is going in for placement for the new latest Marvel blockbuster movie. How much am I, the artist, potentially going to see off of that?
A lot. If it's Marvel, I don't know exactly. I would say, just for your stereotypical larger trailer, it's gonna start anywhere from the lower end being 30,000 to 100,000. And if you're a major, because Marvel realistically will have a large artist on it, which could be in the million territory.
Gotcha.
But for a trailer that's not a promo, because promo is different. Promo is when you're advertising next week's episode.
Gotcha.
So a trailer that you'll see in cinema.
Yeah, in the theaters. Yep.
I mean, 30,000 would be smaller.
that the artist is going to get. So this is after 206 has taken their cut, done all their thing. The artist is going to see 30,000.
Depends. I would say starting at the full payout would be 30,000.
Okay.
See, we do 40% of the upfront. So like for us, we take 40%, but then the artist keeps all their writing, all their publishing 100%.
Yeah, smart.
So like all that back end, we get you your money, we get you the placement, we sign the contracts, the rest is yours. Nice. Like that's kind of how we do. So that's kind of the easier answer because math and me are not friends. So I'm not going to check that. But yeah, so a large trailer. I mean, you'd be making some very, very good money, but those people also are trailer houses and have really honed those skills too. So
for sure. Okay. So that's sort of the larger end of things. Now, how about we're doing a TV show that's on a major network, like a ABC, NBC affiliate, like I believe Runaways was airing on Freeform, which was ABC, I think. Anyway, okay, so it's a major TV station affiliate, and I get my new song, which is 3 Sticks and a Bottle of Jam, synced up with you guys. And you say, all right, Dan, we got this placement for 3 Sticks and a Bottle of Jam with for the next Marvel thing that's going to be on Freeform, whatever that may be. And it's just going to be the promo for next week. So it's the 30 seconds that we see, the highlight reel to get us to tune in next week. How much are we going to see off of that? I'm just ballpark.
Yeah, promo. And like I said, I'm not going to try to see what the artist gets. It's just more the full.
Yeah.
It's going to be a couple thousand, honestly.
Okay.
So as for a promo, depending on the show. So if it's a large show, it can be more than that. It can go up to 10,000. Mm-hmm. But relatively, I'd just be safe to say like 2,000 to 5, depending on, like I said, the bigger the show, the bigger the payout. As far as like in an episode, you're looking at anywhere from 500 to 5,000, but usually we see 1,500 to 2,000. But then you're not taking into account like shows that are reality TV shows are bottom of the bucket. So it's more like 250 to 500 for MTV dollars, which, I think people are probably assuming would be. And some of those try to do it for free and we're like, nope.
So when you are hooked up in an episode, so let's say 4 Sticks and a Bottle of Jam, the remix, gets placed in MTV Teen Mom's 3. Mm-hmm. What happens when that episode eventually re-airs because of the high demand for season 3? And I mean, so number one, it's going to re-air the same day, right? And then they may do like that summer, like Teen Mom 3 weekend where they show all the episodes again. Are you going to see more checks coming out from every time that episode airs, or is it a one-time fee?
So as far as that goes, the terms that you set, a lot of times it's just a one-time fee, but what you will see is your back end. So that's big for artists to register with their PRO with if they've already released the song, Sound Exchange, to collect all their royalties. So those checks will add up. So that's what I was talking about earlier. We don't take the back end. So a lot of times artists will leave things on the table just because they haven't set up their PRO properly, which is free. Well, I mean, it's not free to have a PRO per se, but it's free to set it up. Yeah. And so it's just setting it up and, making sure all the writers are listed, their splits, which we'll take that and send to who we're working with. But if you haven't done that on your end, no matter if we've sent the correct information, there's no like line to send it to. So that's one thing I do want to say if any artists are listening is to really make sure every song that you write, it's so simple to go on your BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, or if you're in another territory, there's PRS, all the ones. Make sure that each song that you just register, you write all your writers, get all that information in. It takes less than 5 minutes. Send. And it doesn't cost anything, but that can make and break. Like I still see checks from Run, because we're on Run topic. I still see every quarter because that also, if you're thinking about network shows, so you said it was on ABC, but what you don't realize,
it goes
also,
to Netflix, Hulu.
Mm-hmm. And one of our biggest ones right now is All American. So we work on All American a lot. So like it was number 10 on Netflix. So that, depending on the show you get, it just keeps going. I still get checks from Run. Like
wow.
if that makes, and that was in 2019.
Whoa, nice.
So like reoccurring, and I had 4 writers, so they get that check every quarter as well. So that's like easy, free money. If you've done all that other effort and all that work, make sure you do the paperwork as well. So
if you're an independent artist, or you are a Lauren Light in the sense that you have your own Synch Licensing company and you're also making music for it, there is value to be had when a reality TV show comes to you and says, can we have this for free? Because you would potentially be collecting on the back end from the PROs. There is a way to make money from that scenario.
There is. If you can, though, always get paid because, but for the most part, I will say we don't have very many people that try to do that. But every once in a while, it will happen to brand spanking new artists where they'll try to know, they've never done sync. Even if that show gets you $200, trust me, they have the budget. So. Now, it's a little different if we're talking about indie films, people that are local film festival. There are things there and kind of know that they're in the same starting stage as you. So there's a benefit and a working relationship there. So we're not talking about those. We're talking about people that have national syndication.
Yes.
So just wanted to make that clear. So indie film people don't come after me.
So let's talk a little bit about microsync. I've always wondered and always sometimes marveled at the music that I hear in shopping centers around the world. Like, I remember so distinctly the moment I walked into a shopping center in France and heard "All I Want for Christmas Is You" playing over the speakers or whatever, and I'm going, whoa, like, hold on, I'm in this teeny tiny little town in like the northwest of France. Like, yes, it's a chain store for France, but like Mariah Carey's made it all the way out here. And then I think about being in Japan, and you hear American songs sometimes playing, and it's everywhere. So you've had placements in McDonald's. Number one, can you talk about that sort of experience and then maybe break down what that micro licensing is and what it looks like?
So with micro sync licensing, it's not going to pay you as much, but it pays you a lot more over time. Smaller, pennies add up, and it's more than pennies. But right now I have one of my songs from one of my albums. So this is an artist track. And it's also breaking the mold of what I said earlier. It's called 2005. It's very specific because it's of an actual date. But right now, all the McDonald's in the UK picked it up. So all of a sudden, so when people are waiting for their burgers in the UK, so right now that song is doing something in the UK. But, you don't really find out because when you send it out, they're sending it to a whole bunch of potential markets, a whole bunch of potential department stores. You're not thinking about like grocery stores, outlet malls. Because like I know multiple songs I have that are in like PetSmart or the UK version of that, or we have a lot of stuff that are in Turkey and Russia, and like you never know who's going to pick up what. Like I have a really scary song that's in that's in Russia that I'm like, this is the song we picked for Overheard, but you never know. It might be for their Halloween season. Like you just don't know. But anyway, that's great, especially for people that are artists and people Shazam it all the time. So I can see on my Shazam where people are like, in the department store, and you'll see in like YouTube, they'll write like, I heard this in the shoe store. I heard this in. So all the things that you hear, none of that's free. I think a lot of stores, and that's sometimes why store owners can get in trouble too, because they don't pay their rights to the different PROs, but also like that music's not free. You can't just put on Spotify and let that run in the store. Like that's a big no. Those PRO agencies will come and get them. But it's a really good way. And you have to know this is the one up front where you do not get paid up front, but you get paid on the back end. So it's like one of those sit it and forget it. You say, here's all the songs, you send it, and whoever is like, really like this. But I've gotten some really loyal fans that heard my song literally while they were in a shopping center or in a McDonald's and was like, I love this. So it's one avenue too, as well. We don't talk about for marketing your song because you're pushing it for Facebook, you're pushing it for whatever. But do you not ever think when you're in a store, like, that's a cool song? Or like listen to the lyrics and then try to type it in and find it. Like there's a lot of people that do that. So that's something that, one, it gets you a little cash. And depending on where you get it, can get you a good chunk of cash a couple quarters later. But it's just a good market to look into. And also, like I said, I didn't mention, like, other places like, I'm trying to think, like amusement parks, the music that they use over there. Like there's so many places that use overheard radio. So just keep that in mind.
I think I've been saying overhead radio, so thank you for correcting that. Because the speakers are generally above your head, so I'm thinking overhead radio.
I think it's appropriate. Overhead, overheard, both of them work. They're both the same thing.
Well, evidence that mistakes have been made and corrected, and now we can successfully move forward with our overheard music. So, you mentioned something about software for identifying when loops and samples are used in music. I'm personally very curious as to what that software is.
I will say that's going to be more of one of the owners is producer, and he has a different software that does. But things just as simply Shazamming. Sometimes we can catch songs just by Shazamming. So it will pick up one of those other songs or samples. A lot of times, splice samples are very easy to detect. The thing is, I know a lot of these sites say you can use them royalty free. The key to it is to manipulate it until it doesn't sound like that sound and it sounds unique to you. Because the same things have even happened. Like, there was a thing with Justin Bieber where he used something straight off a splice, and this local artist used it as well. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's stealing the song, but they both used the same royalty free sample and just didn't chop it up or do anything to it. So just things like that, it might technically not be wrong, but people that are not knowledgeable about that product or knowing that you can will go, crap, we don't want it. We don't want to deal with legalities. And it just throws it off. So a lot of people will fight and say like, well, it says it's legal. It says it's legal, but a music supervisor still will say no. So, but there is some softwares. If I get a hold of him, I'll ask him to tell me the exact name. But another one's like TuneSat, and you can kind of find some different stuff as well. So, and you can also find your own music when it's been played. So that's one of them as well. But I'll ask him the name. We let him do that part.
Well, that is super, super cool. I don't think I have any more sync questions. I think we kind of covered everything. This was a little bit of a masterclass. Is there anything we didn't hit on the sync that you think we should talk about?
I mean, sync is a huge thing. There's a lot that goes on. If anyone ever wants to learn more, and you're on Clubhouse, I do a weekly call on Wednesdays that I just literally sit for an hour with a composer, and we just answer. Either he answers composition, which is the trailer world, or I answer sync stuff for about an hour. You got me for an hour, and I'll answer different questions. So feel free. Every Wednesday, it's free. It's just my way of helping without being bombarded by emails of questions. So I'm like, got a question, ask me on this hour. So yeah.
Well, I look forward to asking you about where I can pitch my song, 3 Sticks and a Bottle of Jam, because I really think this is the future, and I think we're going to go far.
I love it.
And that joke is officially worn thin, and I will now leave it alone. So let's talk a little bit about the separation of the sort of mental real estate, and then also the mental outlook for when you're going to be an artist and write artisty things, and when you are going to conform to a certain box and be a craftsperson. And I mean that, I really think that to delineate that, an artist I see as creating whatever is in their heart and soul and just making art, whereas a craftsperson is an artist, but who is limiting or confining or constraining or reining in their art into a certain area with a certain focus that then enables them to have a certain degree of product stability. Like if you think about a handmade vase and there's 20 of them, right, this person is an artist. They're making this handmade vase, but they are getting 20 that look kind of the same. So can you talk about how you separate that for yourself, and if you find that there's been any detriment to one side or the other when you spend too long in one of those worlds?
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit at the first, so this is good to elaborate. You really need to do both. I like to say do something that will make you money now and something that will make you money later. So a lot of the artist stuff is the stuff whenever they hear your song on these TV shows or whatever, and they come to hear the artist side. Don't just put yourself all in one box. So I like to just create art that means something to me, and you just need to do that. You just need to have no agenda on that, but be okay that might not be something that's great for sync. Create music that will be. So a lot of times you not notice, but a lot of major artists create their couple singles that are going to be the singles for the album. They're prepped exactly for radio. It's almost the exact same way. And the rest of the album is more, I did what I wanted to say this and whatever. So everyone's kind of doing that. You're placing a couple of your songs that's going to pay for that album, that's going to pay for that artistry. But when they come to your page, they get to hear the artistry. So I think that's how it's always benefited me. It's never been a detriment, because sometimes when I did all artist songs, all that advertisement and weight was on me. So if I wanted people to hear it, I had to get it somewhere. As when I have songs that are on television shows or that are on like major EDM playlists or whatever, like they've done the advertisement for me, which helps filter people from news sources than me just trying to do Facebook ads and trying to play all the shows. It helps. But as far as just doing that, like you just have to write songs. You have to split up your time. Another thing that I do, there's a couple projects that I work on that does not fit Lauren Light at all, but they fit AdWorld. Like AdWorld has its sound. So I made monikers.
What is AdWorld?
AdWorld's like anything like on Walmart, McDonald's, like there's a specific sound, and I don't think people realize it. It's a very specific. So that market it's still an artist thing, but it's just this very like hype music. A lot of people won't get their music on there with just their artist, because
I see. So then you segment it into different, like doing business as or pseudonyms. Yeah.
So I have about 7 pseudonyms right now.
Oh, wow.
So, and like, for instance, when I first started doing it, I was doing everything under Lauren Light, which really confuses people. So instead, what I did is, I made a couple. So I have like one that's called Fab, which is all artist world. And I have one called Luxari, which is all trailer creepy. So then it allowed for Lauren Light to just be artist. So if the stuff doesn't fall in your artist world, make a pseudonym. The thing is with like Sync or anything like that, they don't care if you have 5 followers as long as the song's right. But artist world, they care what your follower count is. They care what your Spotify is. So separate them. I think that was the biggest turning point for me. When you separate them, no problems. But I still post my wins. A lot of times I don't post them all. But yeah,
there's just the wins are coming in so fast with Lauren Light. The wins are coming in so fast and heavy. Lauren's just picking them. Listen, if you follow her on Instagram, we're only seeing every 215th win. She's got the ratio down.
I love it. Well, because some songs I get
it. I'm the same way. I get it.
Because the other day we got one, me and my producer, and he was like, "Are we posting this one?" Because it was just the quirkiest song that was just silly. I posted it on stories, so I'm like, I hope someone goes to this episode and watches it, because they'll be like, "What is this?" But at the end of the day, that's what pays for my artistry, and so then I'm able then to go on tour and play and fulfill that side. So I will do that quirky song and don't care. But yeah, so I divide them up. But yeah, I think you can't try to meld them all together, but you can kind of work them both in. So just being intentional. helps.
Being intentional does help. So with your Lauren Light project and the other pseudonym projects, do any of them have any sort of like major or indie major distribution or record label deals, or is everything really independent because you essentially have the entire Lauren Light steam engine is essentially you are able to fund it with Synch Licensing? Like if you stop making Lauren Light music, you could still make money from the Synch Licensing. So how does all this work?
Yeah, because a lot of times I'd like the artist world, which makes me sometimes sad, is a lot more of you pushing your music.
Yeah.
And paying into that system.
Yes.
Which is like, most of your money is like from touring, or if you happen to get, but the plays count after you've already put all your money into PR, blah, 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 blah. It starts leveling out. But as far as that goes, what was the question? Because I kind of went a little ADD there.
So the question was, do you have any sort of major or indie major distribution?
Yes. I've done that before within Lauren Light, and I work with a lot of different EDM labels as well for some projects. So like the last single I just came out with is with a record label. I don't put those into sync. Those are all, but they funded the whole entire project, funded all of the PR campaign, and I was signed as an artist for a single song. I try personally not to sign anything exclusive as the whole artist. But that being said, I have a deal, which I can't talk about too much, that is a pseudonym exclusivity. So like, for instance, I have a company that's creating a whole entire pseudonym where I'm doing one of the different sides. They're prepping the whole entire promo, press release, blah, 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 but I'm making that kind of music for them, and they're exclusive under the pseudonym. So they'll do it for, it's underneath a record label, and, like that will all be that way. So yeah, there is sometimes it's distributed, but a lot of it is just DIY as far as Lauren Light stuff. I love that I'm talking about myself in third person. That's even better.
The winds are coming in hard and fast, and Lauren Light will talk about Lauren Light in the third person. So when you have these moments of things going out under a pseudonym, do you ever have this internal voice that's like, you're missing out on that recognition of your peers and also your fans from this effort that you've put into your art? Do you ever feel that way?
No, honestly, I think for a long time I thought I need to stay in this lane. What brings me like just so much enjoyment, I think that was changing the way I saw success. So for me, I love writing every genre. It gets a little old to me to just write the same thing. I love writing so many different topics. I almost like majored in theater or minored in theater. Like I like telling stories. So sometimes when I was just like only doing Lauren Light music, it gets a little exhausting because I was on the road 24/7, which I'm sure I'll go back to doing right after everything with COVID. And it's opened up that world. And honestly, I think I get more recognition now because people see me through different avenues and they're like, who's the singer in this? And then it wraps right back to me. Because a lot of times, even with the pseudonyms, I'll put featuring Lauren Light. So it right back to me.
Oh, there you go.
So no, actually, I think I've gotten more. And sometimes people wouldn't listen to my music. They're like, oh, but then they say I'm on projects like, oh, well, maybe if she's on these big things, she's actually good. I know I hate to say it. Most artists, like they're begging people to listen to their music sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And somehow some validation of being on a show, they're like, oh, well, I guess she actually makes something good. And then they start listening and they're like, wow, did you know like your music's actually pretty good? And I'm like, it's wild.
Who knew? Lauren Light knew. I
know. And it's like one of those, you're like, well, you've been trying to beg people to come to your shows, but it's interesting. But no, I've never felt, I think I felt worse before I started doing sync. I love where I'm at now. It just feels, I feel like I'm in my like hone of genius. I think before I was limiting myself. So I like it.
So you found that when you have a sync license come through and someone finds your music through that sync license, there's an appreciation of value in that person's mind for you as an artist. That's what you're seeing. It's just like a validation of like, well, if she was in Marvels, obviously she's large.
if she's in McDonald's overheard radio, obviously something's happening. But with me just having a good song, for some reason they needed some external something to tell them that the rest of the songs were going to be good. So it's just interesting. You have to force people sometimes, even if it's a great song, unless they are like on TikTok platform or they hear it on a Spotify playlist. It's just easier for me personally. I don't know about everybody else.
Okay, so why don't we tie up this conversation around sync licensing here? I've got what Dan Spencer feels is the breakout single, which is 2 sticks and a bottle of jam. Dan Spencer would very much like to get that synced. So where do I go to make that happen? How do I, as the little guy, get that rocking and rolling by myself?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, don't go straight to a music supervisor. You're just wasting your time. They work with trusted people. Go to a licensing company or go to a music library. Those two. Easy way to find it, just to reverse engineer, do your research, watch shows, watch ads, see where you hear similar songs, and then right. So if you, like, for instance, heard, we're going to make something up. Peloton has a song on, you Shazam, and you're like, oh, there's this band called Sophie Tucker, which ironically I just know it's that one right now. So then you'll go to their profile on Instagram and you'll scroll until you see something that says, like, thanks to our company that placed this song, or they'll tag the licensing company that placed it. Then go to the licensing company. But like I said, you've intentionally heard a song that sounds like you found them, and then you just have to dive a little bit, and then you find that company. And sometimes those licensing companies, well, not sometimes, they all do, they post their different placements on their site, so you can kind of just see, okay, these are cool, these are things that are similar to me, and then pitch your music to them. And that's pretty much it.
And for music libraries, are there any that you would recommend as a good starting point or jumping off point for people who
I'll
want
give you
to get
one
into
good
this?
one. Crucial Music is really good if you're just starting out. They're very picky, so it's a good learning lesson too. You'll learn really fast. So you can send 3 songs in at a time. They're great. I love the people that work there. But yeah, and there's also a whole entire world, which I'm not going to go into, but I mean, I can. That's all like instrumental cues and that kind of stuff. So that's its own thing. But I always like to tell people Crucial is a great place to start. They're great people and they get very good placements. They've been around for 11 plus years, but you literally just have to fill out a form. You're not talking to somebody. You're just putting in submission. So I think that's good for people to learn. And then, the rejection teaches you as well. So.
Lauren Light, is there anything we did not talk about that you think we should hit before we call it a day?
Have we really talked that long? Oh my goodness. I think there's nothing else. I mean, we've talked about Artist World. We've talked about the podcast. We've talked about Sync. No, I think you've talked and said the things.
Hey, wait, Lauren Light and Dan Spencer, say the things. Listen now.
I hope that's the promo for the episode.
That's going to be it. Listen to us say the things. And the backing track for all of that is going to be the synced 2 sticks and a jar jam.
If this
I forget the container now.
I know. If this is not something that actually happens and there's not like a theme song that enters this podcast and exits it that's called 2 sticks, I'm going to be kind of disappointed. So
I'm going to get to work right now. We're going to make it happen. It's going to be 2 sticks in a pot of jam, and it's going to be, my artist name is going to be green bathtub duck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what's your pseudonym going to be for this one?
I don't know why I thought Honey Jam, because you
said... Okay, and Honey Jam, okay, great. And then at the end, it's going to be featuring Lauren Light, so everyone can come back and figure out who's actually singing the vocals. Check out Lauren Light on Instagram. That's Lauren_Light, and of course, 206 Music. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.